What is the common cold? When someone says, I have a cold, what do they mean? What they mean really is that there's something in their body causing a set of symptoms, and we call this set of symptoms the actual cold. This includes things like runny noses, sneezing, coughing, maybe even chills, or a monster of a headache. It does not include a fever. Normally, if there's a fever, we call it the flu. And there are a lot of different viruses that can cause cold symptoms, but about half the time, the cold is caused by a class of virus called a rhinovirus. Like the words rhino and virus put together, but not a rhinoceros. That would be way cooler. The rhinovirus gets into the cell lining of your nose and it starts reproducing. It arrives from other people. So there are some myths we have to bust. One, it is not cold weather that causes a cold. Instead, it's the fact that cold weather causes people to congregate together indoors, and it makes it easier for a rhinovirus to jump from one person to the next. The virus generally moves from someone else's hands to your hands through something like touching a doorknob, putting your hands into your nose or your eyes, which I'm not going to do because that would be kind of gross on camera. Your body reacts to the presence of the rhinovirus with its immune system. In the case of a cold, the immune system opens up blood vessels inside your nose through inflammation, and this also increases your mucus. And these two processes give you that famous runny nose and the stuffy feeling, the irritation caused by the virus, and all the fluid causes sneezing. The virus makes it into the cell lining, then your lungs are going to start producing fluid and mucus as well. And that's what makes you cough. You're coughing up lung mucus. As the immune system gears up over several days and fights the virus back, this mucus thickens. It gets grosser. This mucus thickens and it changes color with dead cells, a form of pus. That is true. It is gross and it is totally true. But eventually, the immune system eliminates the virus completely, and boom, you're well again. You're hale and hearty and ready for some more misadventure. How long does this take? Well, the whole healing process takes about 7 to 10 days if you have average health. So that's it.
Smallpox is an ancient deadly disease that has existed for 3,000 years. An estimated 300 million people died from smallpox in the 20th century alone. It was fatal in up to a third of people infected. Early symptoms include high fever and fatigue. This takes between 7 and 17 days after exposure. At this point, the disease becomes contagious. The virus then produces a distinctive rash, particularly on the face, arms and legs. The most infectious period is during the first week of illness. The resulting spots become filled with clear fluid and later pus, and then form a crust which eventually dries up and falls off. The person remains contagious right up until the last scab is removed. The virus spreads through person-to-person contact and saliva droplets in an infected person's breath. In 1796, Edward Jenner famously experimented with the origins of what would become a vaccine, but it wasn't until 1959 that a global eradication effort began. The last naturally occurring case of smallpox was diagnosed on 26th of October 1977. It was officially declared eradicated in 1979. Some governments believe there is a risk that the virus which causes smallpox still exists in places other than laboratories and could be deliberately released to cause harm. The World Health Organization claims it is impossible to assess the risk of an outbreak, but they are helping governments prepare for this grim possibility.
Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, is a mysterious disease that is spreading quickly through the Arab world. The disease has already killed at least 92 people in Saudi Arabia, where over 300 MERS cases have been diagnosed. The deadly virus has recently reached Egypt. The first confirmed case of MERS confirmed in that nation is a 27-year-old civil engineer who recently traveled to Saudi Arabia. He's currently being treated in a hospital in Cairo. The MERS virus has also been diagnosed in Jordan and in the United Arab Emirates. One man died from the disease after returning home to Indonesia from the Saudi Kingdom. The Centers for Disease Control wrote they recognize the potential for the virus to spread further and cause more cases and clusters globally, including in the United States. Like SARS, or severe acute respiratory syndrome, symptoms of MERS include fever and coughing. These can develop into pneumonia. However, SARS killed 1 in 10 of its victims, while 1 in 3 people diagnosed with MERS have died. On a web page of questions about the mysterious disease, officials of the CDC wrote, quote, "So far, all the cases have been linked to 6 countries in or near the Arabian Peninsula. No cases have been identified in the U.S. This virus has spread from ill people to others through close contact. However, the virus has not shown to spread in sustained way in communities." Little is known about how MERS developed or how it damages the human body. The disease was identified in Egyptian camels before it was detected in humans. This leads health officials to believe animals may serve in the transmission of the disease. The man being treated for MERS in Egypt is a native of the Nile Delta, but was living in Cairo at the time he contracted the virus. Saudi King Abdullah fired the country's health minister amid a growing public controversy over the government's handling of the emerging health crisis. And the last 5 deaths in the kingdom were located in the cities of Mecca, Jeddah, and the capital city of Riyadh. The World Health Organization has issued travel advisories for people headed to areas affected by the MERS virus.
It turns out that this 2009 H1N1 began circulating in pigs in 1918. At the same time, the 1918 influenza virus outbreak was occurring in humans. But because these 2 viruses were in different hosts, they evolved differently. So they both have a common ancestor going back to 1918. But because the swine H1N1 was in pigs, it evolved differently from human H1N1. And now that swine H1N1 is basically a new virus to humans, and the pre-existing immunity we have to seasonal H1N1 doesn't really protect us significantly from it. Whales and seals both carry particular strains of influenza. Horses carry influenza virus strains, and recently dogs have become a significant source of influenza virus infection. An influenza virus particle is roughly round in shape. It has a couple of protrusions coming off of it in 2 different shapes. One that's more of a spike and one more of a propeller shape. The H spike is used to enter a cell, and the other, the N spike that we always refer to, is used to actually get away from a cell. Anywhere from 9 to 12 hours later, the surface of that cell starts to form little bubbles, and those bubbles are new virus particles coming off. For about 3 to 4 hours, that cell will be able to make infectious virus particles. and it can make anywhere from 10,000 to nearly 1 million virus particles depending on the cell type. So if you're immune to infection, with influenza that means that you have antibodies that will bind to the virus particle and keep that virus particle from interacting with the cell.